if I say greatest JRPG of all time, I don't think it would be crazy to assume most people would probably say Final Fantasy VII first, or maybe Chrono Trigger. If I mentioned just great JRPGs, people would probably say Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, hell, even Mario RPG or Paper Mario, the Tales games. And then I would mention Legend of Dragoon, and there'd probably be two responses. One being, I never actually played it, or the second one would be, you know what, that was actually a pretty cool game, now that I think about it. You see, Legend of Dragoon is a standout example of a cult classic in the world of Japanese RPGs. It was developed by Sony Computer Entertainment, Sony, and released for the PlayStation in 1999 in Japan and 2000 in North America. And while it didn't achieve the same commercial success as other RPGs of its time, the aforementioned Final Fantasy VII, it left a lasting impression on those who played it. The game is often praised for its innovative combat system, memorable characters, and engaging story, making it a cherished title for many fans even decades after its release. So while I wouldn't put Legend of Dragoon on the Mount Rushmore of RPGs, I do believe it's earned its right to sit next to the great RPGs of the 90s. Set in the fantasy world of endiness, I do want to know who came up with that name. The Legend of Dragoon follows the journey of Dart, a young warrior on a quest for vengeance after his village is destroyed by a mysterious creature known as the Black Monster. As Dart embarks on his adventure, he discovers his fate is tied to the power of the Dragoons, which are legendary warriors who wield the spirit of dragons. He eventually joins forces with a group of companions, each with their own motivations and connections to the Dragoon legacy. Together, they face an escalating conflict that threatens the entire world as ancient forces seek to resurrect a powerful and destructive weapon from the past. The narrative of Legend of Dragoon is rich in themes of destiny, sacrifice, and redemption. While some critics argue that the plot echoed familiar RPG tropes, such as the hero's journey and the battle against an ancient evil, the game's deep character development and emotional moments did set it apart, in my opinion. Characters like Rose, Lavitz, and Shayna each have personal arcs that resonate with players, myself included, creating a strong emotional connection to the storyline. And while I say I do agree that the story isn't wholly original as to break any kind of barriers in storytelling, there is a reason that the hero's journey has been told throughout history time and time again. You know, it's because these stories are the stories and standards that people try to live up to and we can all relate to some degree. So I think a classic hero's tale can never go wrong in the macro sense. It's in the micro sense, things like dialogue and pacing that can really dictate how effective that story is told to the player or reader or viewer. One of the game's most unique features is its combat system. The Legend of Dragoon utilizes a turn-based system, but it does have a twist. Players have to execute timed button presses known as additions to extend attack combos and increase damage. This system adds a layer of interactivity and engagement that was relatively uncommon in traditional turn-based RPGs, so this did help it distinguish itself from its contemporaries. Additionally, characters can transform into dragoons during battle, and they gain access to powerful magic and abilities that link to their dragoon spirits. These transformations provide not only a visual spectacle, but also a tactical layer somewhat. Players have to decide, the best times to utilize their dragoon powers. This addition system is easily the most distinguishable part in Legend of Dragoon, in my opinion. It was really fun and actually pretty challenging to me at the time. All these combos that you would gain over the course of the story, they would get pretty crazy and complex the further and further you got and the more you leveled up. There were a few that I definitely didn't complete at all. Like, I didn't complete one combo all the way through. Granted, the last time I played, I was like 11 or 10 when this game came out, so I kind of wonder, if I replayed it nowadays, with all my accumulated video game knowledge and skill, how I would fare. Anyways, the game was not without its flaws. So, the pacing of the battles, particularly the slower animations during Dragoon transformations, was sometimes criticized for disrupting the flow of combat. Additionally, while the game boasted impressive pre-rendered backgrounds and detailed character models, you see, The Legend of Dragoon is one of those games that, despite being beloved by a very passionate fan base, it didn't reach the mainstream recognition that other RPGs of its time, like Final Fantasy, did. And there are a few reasons why it might have been quote-unquote forgotten, or hasn't maintained the same long-lasting visibility. The game was released in 1999 in Japan, 2000 in North America, and it came out during, I'm talking peak golden era of JRPGs on the PlayStation 1. You had super duper iconic titles like Final Fantasy 7 through 9, you also had Chrono Cross and Suikoden, I think Breath of Fire was in there. And with a game like Final Fantasy VII setting the new standard for RPGs in terms of both commercial success and innovation, other games, even ones as solid as Legend of Dragoon and Suikoden, check out my Suikoden video, those games often get overshadowed. While Legend of Dragoon has developed a strong cult following over the years, at the time of its release, it received kind of mixed reviews from critics. Some praised the game for its visuals and combat system, but others felt the story and dialogue were, I'm going to use that word again, a little derivative or lacking compared to the RPG juggernauts of that era. The mixed reception likely contributed to the game not gaining widespread acclaim, and unlike franchises like You Know What and Dragon Quest, Legend of Dragoon was a standalone game. It never received a sequel or a follow-up or a prequel or a side story. So without any new releases to keep the series in the spotlight, it kind of just slowly faded from mainstream awareness. And this is a game that was hyped up a lot before its release. Yeah, so many older games that remain culturally relevant have ongoing franchises or remakes to keep them fresh in people's minds. For a long time, Legend of Dragoon wasn't widely available outside of its original PlayStation release. And I have the discs somewhere. Unlike other classic RPGs that have been remade or ported to multiple platforms, it wasn't as accessible for modern gamers. It lacked the re-releases, the remakes, remasters, although I do think it's playable on the PS5. I don't know if it's like in the store or if you can pop in your disc. I have a PS5 here at the house, I just don't play it very often, so I don't know how that works. Let me know how that works. Do they have it on the PlayStation Store, or is it on I forget what their version of Game Pass is, but maybe it's on there. Although the game has a dedicated fan base, it doesn't enjoy the same widespread nostalgic pool as some other classic RPGs. It doesn't have that one soundtrack that's like, oh, that's the soundtrack, for Simple and Clean for Kingdom Hearts, or One Winged Angel for, Final Fantasy VII. And much of that comes down to the scale of its success. It sold well, but not on the level of something like Final Fantasy VII. And that smaller fan base just meant fewer discussions, fewer fan content, less pressure for a remake or re-release. And I know I've been comparing Legend of Dragoon to Final Fantasy VII a lot, but that's because it was direct competition to that game. That's how it was kind of sold. If I can remember right, that's how it was kind of marketed. If you were around at that time, let me know what you remember of the marketing, because from what I remember, all the gaming magazines were kind of pushing this narrative of it was like the Final Fantasy VII killer, or experience or like Sony's answer to the Final Fantasy franchise. I'm pretty sure that's how it was sold, at least by the media. Despite this, Legend of Dragoon is remembered fondly by those who played it for several reasons. The Dragoon combat system was unique with its timed button presses and combos, adding a level of engagement uncommon in turn-based RPGs at the time.
Fuck.
The story, though sometimes criticized for being derivative, had its own charm, with memorable characters like Dart, Rose, and Lavitz. The music and atmosphere added a distinct feel that made the game stand out, even among other giants of the genre. And this game does have a vibe about it that really no other game kind of has, and the only thing I can like compare it to is this in terms of pure vibe of just being in the world is probably Chrono Cross. Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Let me know what you think. Despite its mixed critical reception, The Legend of Dragoon has cultivated a passionate fan base that continues to celebrate the game's strengths. Many fans are drawn to its complex world building, emotional depth, and the nostalgia it evokes for them. Over the years, The Legend of Dragoon has become a prime example of a game that might not have reached a widespread acclaim or audience upon its release, but it definitely gained a second life through word of mouth, praise, and especially these retro gaming communities. In recent years, the game has seen something of a resurgence in conversations, especially with the rise of said retro gaming communities and digital re-releases on the PlayStation Store, sparking renewed interest from both old fans and new players. There's even occasional hope for a remaster which could reignite its legacy, and I hope that happens because as a Suikoden fan, plugging the Suikoden video I made, we were just bummed after 5. We thought the series would never come to the spotlight again, but you know, this kind of growing movement of Suikoden fans and like even the press started getting in on it, you know, talking about how great the second game was. And now we have, you know, the remasters of 1 and 2. And if that sells well, it could, you know, kind of reignite the franchise. And I really hope the same thing happens for Legend of Dragoon. I think it is it's such a well of untapped potential, especially with the addition system and the lore and the world building. I think this game could make a great JRPG franchise, even if it's smaller in scale, like a Bravely Default or something, just to test the waters of how the community will receive it. And I really hope the Legend of Dragoon community makes a lot of noise so that we can kind of see this game almost like a franchise that is almost a what could have been. You know what I mean? Anyways, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment a memory of yours that when it comes to Legend of Dragoon. Mine is definitely those damn editions and the ones that I couldn't get. There was a guy named the Kung Fu guy, Herschel or something like that. I could never get his down. Anyways, thanks for watching and God bless.